really feeling you. I have a junior at Wilson, so for a lot of you, I look familiar, and that feeling of panic that you had tonight when we were talking about college costs, I have that a lot too. So we're going to go over a couple things tonight, kind of a really brief overview of financial aid, what it is, how it works, what the different financial aid programs are. We're going to have, I have only one slide, but we talk a lot about financial aid applications and deadlines, and then I'll talk a little bit about finding financial resources. If you have questions while I'm talking, just shout them out. I have handouts. They weren't ready for you when you came in, but we have them now. So, but if you've got questions, just shout them out. Now that the light is no longer in our eyes, I can probably see everybody, but I'm sort of blinded from sitting on this side of the room. So briefly, I was a financial aid director. I've been a college admissions director. They didn't just ask me here tonight because I love Wilson, but I do. But I can say this having been a financial aid person, we like to keep our math really simple. So even though these colleges want you to have Algebra 2, when we are talking about financial aid, we're right back in the second grade. We're talking some addition and some subtraction. So each college is going to have something called a cost of attendance. That's the COA up there. And that is everything. It's tuition and fees, it's room and board, it's books and supplies, it's transportation, it can be study abroad, it can be all sorts of fees rolled up into one. So when you hear these horror stories that college costs $65,000 a year, but that the University of Oregon is now $24,000, $25,000, and you think back to what you paid in tuition, what they're talking about is that whole cost of attendance. So each school is going to determine their cost of attendance. And you can find this information out on every school website, but we tend to ignore that a little bit. We let them do that. They come up with that. That is the sticker price, and very few of us actually pay that, unless you're my husband and you're buying a car. And I think you pay more than sticker price. Expected family contribution, or EFC. This is tailored to each student. And one of the forms we're going to talk about a little bit, and we've mentioned it already tonight, is the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That will open up on October 1st, which is a Saturday this year. And on that form, which you fill in online, you're going to list your family's income and perhaps your family's assets. And those of you who have been to Financial Aid Night before, you know FAFSA has a really funny definition of assets. And you're going to put all this in. It goes into a formula, and there's a cartoon somewhere of like two, I think they're aliens. They put in some things, and it goes into a magic box, and then something comes out the other end. That's kind of what the FAFSA feels like. You put in your information, it goes through this formula, this magic box. At the end, it spits out something called an expected family contribution. And this is a number that ranks your family's ability to pay for college compared to every other family who is sending a child to college that academic year. And it can be anywhere from 5 zeros, meaning that you have absolutely no resources to put towards higher education, to 5 nines, which means that obviously we think you can pay for this all out of your pocket. I've only seen 5 nines a couple of times in my career. One of them was a dad who had triplets. And so I called him and I said, this can't be right. Because if you've got more than one child in college, they take your expected family contribution as a family and they divide it evenly amongst your kids. And so I expected to say, oh yeah, I did something wrong. It really should be like 33, 333. And he said, oh no, that's right. So I said, okay. That makes my job a lot easier. So what the financial aid office does in a nutshell, we take that cost of attendance, we subtract out that expected family contribution, and whatever is left over is considered financial need. And that's the money that you need to send your student to college. And it's our job as a financial aid office to find money to help you fill that need. So any questions? That was a really long explanation, and I know it's really hot. So I don't want any of you to fall asleep.
So then you get a very different number for financial need depending on where you're applying?
Yes, it's a great question. You can have a very different number for financial need depending on where you're applying. If you're applying to PCC and the cost of attendance is $12,000 and your EFC is $12,000, it looks like you have no need. But if you take that same $12,000 EFC and you go to University of Oregon where the cost is $24,000, it looks like you have a need of $12,000. If you're going to Harvard and that need is, or that cost of attendance is $60,000, you've got that expected family contribution of $12,000, it looks like you need $48,000. So yeah, your need can really vary from school to school. Having said that, and I know that Eric talked about it a little bit, we don't want you to rule any school out just because of that sticker price. Let that play out. Unfortunately, it's April Fool's Day, April 1st, is when colleges are supposed to have their financial aid awards to you. And sometimes you open them and they really do feel like a joke. I've seen, this year is crazy, really wonderful financial aid packages and really awful financial aid packages. So you're going to have things on the two extremes when you actually get all that information back. Yeah.
Is this financial need assessed every single year, or is this just when you go in?
It's every single year. And the theory behind that is that you could inherit $1 million, win the lottery, lose a job, add a family member, subtract a family member, more than one student could be in college. There's a lot of different things that can go on in a family. All right, so we've got different financial aid programs. They all fall really into two categories: gift aid and self-help. Now, gift aid we like because somebody's just giving you money to go to college, right? You don't have to do anything. So grants are based on whether or not you need a grant. So if you need money, and we've got money to give you, we're just going to give you money. Sometimes there's a little bit more to it than that, and we'll go over some of the grant programs. Parents love scholarships more than anything. I like grant money better than scholarship money because it's easier, but as a parent of a junior, I would be bragging all over town, even if she only got a $200 scholarship. So parents, we love getting those scholarships. The other category is self-help. This is when we realize that you need money to go to college, but we're not going to just give it to you. There are strings attached to it. So work study is just like it sounds. You're going to get a job. With student loans, you're going to get a loan, but you're going to pay it back once you're out of school. So, and any of these can be either based on merit or based on need. And we'll kind of go over those different combinations, but just keep those in mind. All right, so we love to start with grants because they're free money. You don't have to write all this down. The FAFSA timing has changed. It used to open up on January 1st, so I'd come in here in like November, and I have these beautiful booklets to give you that kind of discuss everything in really excruciating detail. The Department of Ed just decided, out of the blue, to change FAFSA to be 3 months earlier, so we're behind on our publications. But I promise you that I will be back here most likely in September and then probably again in November, and I will have beautiful booklets for you. So don't attempt to write this down, but if you want to take out your phones and take pictures, feel free, and also I will give our counselors a copy of this to post. The granddaddy of them all, the kind of the rose bowl of grant money, are the federal Pell Grants. So parents, I went to high school here and college in the 80s, and at that time they weren't called Pell Grants yet. They used to be called Basic Educational Opportunity Grants. They've been called a lot of different things. But these are the building blocks of financial aid. This is the first thing that we look at. Is a student Pell Grant eligible? And if you are, that means anywhere from about $400 to about $5,400 in grant money this year. So that's the very first thing we look at. The Pell Grant is specific to the student. The student will get the same amount of Pell Grant no matter what college or university they attend. So if we say you're going to get $2,000 in Pell Grant, it doesn't matter if you go to PCC or if you go to Harvard, you're going to get $2,000 in Pell Grant. FSCOG is another federal grant that's distributed instead of being student-specific, it's campus-specific. Some colleges have huge amounts of SCOG, and some colleges have none. So you might see FSCOG in your aid package up to $4,000, or you might not see any. So it's one of those that you'll know it when you see it. Yeah?
One application will get you an opportunity for each one of those grants?
Yes, that FAFSA, which we'll talk about in a sec in a little bit more detail, that's the application process for the grants from here on up. So FAFSA is a really important tool. I said the other night it was a gateway drug to financial aid, which wasn't as funny as it sounded in my mind. But I'm going to let you guys know that. But FAFSA is the key to getting grants. Next, we've got something called a Teach Grant. This is a grant that we give to prospective teachers. Funny thing about this grant, if you take this grant and you don't teach, it turns into a loan. So we try to only give it to students who have declared an education major and are within 2 years of graduation. Lastly, we've got an Iraq and Afghanistan service grant. It's pretty much what it sounds like. If you served in Iraq or Afghanistan, you fill in the FAFSA, you can be eligible to receive that grant funding. All of those grants come from the federal government. The state of Oregon has 2 grant programs. The first one is called the OOG, the Oregon Opportunity Grant. It's about $2,000 a year. It goes to those families that have a 0 EFC. So those 5 zeros we talked about, if you come back and you've got 5 zeros, you will get an Oregon Opportunity Grant if you attend college in Oregon. You can't take it away. The idea behind this is we want talented Oregonians to stay in Oregon, get a degree, get an Oregon job, and pay Oregon taxes. So this is the oldest of the state opportunity, funding opportunities we have. Next is the Oregon Promise, and you heard Teresa allude a couple times to if the program still exists. The legislature, in their last long session, which was 2015, allocated $10 million to the Oregon Promise program. And that is a program where students who are graduating from an Oregon high school with at least a 2.5 GPA, who have filled in the proper paperwork, and who attend any of the community colleges in Oregon can get their tuition paid for. So I do not think that we are going to run out of money. So junior parents, I believe the Oregon Promise will be around. I keep hitting this. My butt must be bigger than I think it is. But I think the Oregon Promise will be around when our students are going to college. So again, we'll have more information on that once this year's seniors figure out where they're going to go to school. I think there are a lot more applications than we thought that there would be. And so community colleges like Teresa's are really gearing up for a big bubble, a big jump in the number of traditional high school students that they see. And lastly, there's something called an institutional grant. Eric mentioned something called a discount rate. And basically what that means, this is usually at private independent colleges and universities. For every dollar I would take in when I was at our private school, I would turn around and give out 29 cents in grants to students. So it's the Robin Hood thing. I would take your money gladly and then I'd turn around and give it to somebody else. That was about 15 years ago. The average discount rate has gone from somewhere around 29 to 30% up to about 41% at our private colleges and universities. So that's why we always say, don't worry about the sticker price, wait until you see your financial aid award. There's often a lot of funding there to be had.
Does eligibility for one type of grant affect?
Good question. Does the eligibility for one type of grant affect eligibility for another type of grant? And the answer is no. For any of these grant programs, the federal and state programs, you could conceivably receive all of them at the same time. So, which would be kind of crazy, but it could really, really happen. And with institutional grants that are more expensive, private colleges and universities, the need is usually so high that we can kind of keep putting grants on there. And we don't have to worry about giving you too much money. So, which would be a really wonderful problem to have. All right, so scholarships. The biggest thing, parents, you need to, A, tell your students to look for them, and then B, kind of laugh because you know your student's not going to pay a lot of attention. I get a lot of calls about this time of the year. Students are trying to make a deposit on May 1st, and they don't have enough financial aid. Like, I need to apply for scholarships. And my response is, I've been telling you this since you were a sophomore. So it's the same in my house, too. Parents, on that bulletin that goes out every afternoon around 4 o'clock, our counselors do put lists of scholarships in there. There are lists of scholarships in Naviance. On your purple handout, there's a couple of references to different scholarship search engines. But I'm here to tell you that the best thing since sliced bread is the OSAC scholarship application. OSAC is a state agency. We're the only state in the entire country that has one scholarship application with one deadline. You can list up to 20 scholarships at a time, and there are over 500 to choose from. So I think it's wonderful. I read for a couple of the scholarships on OSAC, including scholarship number 1. And there are scholarships on there that are based on need, some that are based on merit, some that are just based on the fact that you go to school in Portland or Portland Public Schools. So definitely look at that.
Are the OSAC scholarships on like the Oregon schools?
No, some of the OSAC scholarships can be used anywhere, and some of the OSAC scholarships are limited to Oregon schools. When you look them up online, they've got this search engine, which I have to say, and OSAC knows I say this, it's not the greatest search engine in the world. It's a search engine that we have. It'll tell you, it'll say Oregon or it'll say USA. And those that say Oregon, you can only use in Oregon. Those that say USA, you can use anywhere in the country. You cannot take them to Canada. I know that, especially in this neighborhood, a lot of students look at Canadian universities, but OSAC does not travel across the border. Institutional scholarships, so I know Alex talked about how University of Portland has their own scholarship program. University of Oregon, Oregon State, any private colleges, and Portland Community College as well, all have institutional scholarships. Those are usually scholarships that are endowed. So somebody went to school there, or I don't know, walked their dog on the campus and really liked it, and decided to either give money or leave money in their will for a scholarship. And there are all sorts of different types of scholarships there. When I was at Linfield, my job was to match the scholarships that we had available in the scholarship funding with students that matched the criteria. And that would take me a good 6 weeks every spring. So it can be really difficult to do. I know that PCC, Portland State, and University of Portland, all three of the colleges up here, do offer scholarships to students as they come in. So at PCC, everybody's always surprised, A, that they have scholarships, and B, that high school students can apply to them. So I will tell you, I read for the PCC Foundation, students, please use capital letters, punctuation, and answer the question. Last year, the PCC Foundation gave out 1,000 scholarships. This year, or they gave out 1,000. This year they have 1,100 applicants. So the odds are very good you're going to get a scholarship. And I have reviewed probably about 100 of them, and at least 4 I've had to say they have no points. They haven't used any punctuation, they haven't used any capital letters, and they have not completed the application properly. So please just follow the directions when you're doing that. Lastly, we've got some community scholarships. These are the Eagles and the Elks and the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Downtown Hillsdale Businessmen's Association. They want to support students from their community who go to school. So these may or may not be in Naviance because we might not want to share them with the other high schools in the district. So some of these you'll find out directly from our counselors. These would also include those Wilson High School Booster, Wilson High School PTA, ones that are just for our students. All right, any questions? Oh, way over there, Linda, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
If you get a scholarship, does it show up on your FAFSA?
If you get a scholarship, does it show up on your FAFSA? The answer is no, not on your FAFSA, but you will tell the schools about it, and then they will look at that when they're looking at that cost of attendance minus EFC equals financial need, and they're going to put it into that financial need category. So, okay, I've known Linda forever. Yeah. If you see me at Fred Meyer or more likely Costco or Winco, just ask me questions. The only time you can't do that is if my dad's with me, and he looks like an extra from The Sopranos, or like a little bit taller than Robert De Niro with that same look now. So if I don't get to your questions or I don't see you, just find me. All right, work study we talked about a little bit. There's federal work study, there's institutional work study. Some states have state work study. I love work study. You get a job. It's either on campus or it's directly related to your major. So I've had students that were studying apparel design. Their work study job was in the wardrobe department at the Portland Opera. So much better than answering phones for student services. It's great for your resume. And I have a typo. It leads to your first jot out of college, but I really meant a good job. It did for me. I was a tour guide for the admissions office for 3 years in college, and I graduated during the last Great Recession in 1989. And I had intended to become an economist at the BPA. They had a hiring freeze. So I took a job as an admissions counselor here in town. And I was just going to do it for a few years, and I never left. I really have loved it. So work study is a wonderful opportunity. Teresa mentioned cooperative education. I'm really big into that. So, all right, student loans. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
About the work study?
Yes.
Is that only an opportunity for kids who need the money?
And the question is, work study, is it only for kids who need the money? The federal program is based on need. Institutional program is not. So a lot of private schools especially have a large work study program specifically for students that don't have need.
Will that show up on the letter that you?
That will show up on your financial aid award letter in April. And I say April, like PCC, you won't hear from them until June. They're just crazy on a different schedule. If it's not there, it's one of those things that's very fair to call the financial aid office and say, I was really hoping for a work study award. So parents love work study, students don't like it quite so much. So often, some schools don't package it right away. So loans, you don't have to write any of this down. I will have this for you. But basically, there are loans for students, subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized means that no interest accrues while the student is in school at least half the time, and for 6 months after they leave or graduate. Unsubsidized means we'll let you borrow money, but we're going to charge you interest while you're in school. That's the difference between need and no need. So unsubsidized loans, I like to say even Bill Gates' kids can get financial aid. It's because they can get the unsubsidized loans. Parents, the dirty little secret that no one will tell you is on April 1st when you get these award letters, for your private institutions, there will often be a rather large parent loan in there. I've seen a couple this year. I saw one of about $33,000, which just really made me kind of gasp a little bit. The federal government will loan you money. They will loan you up to that full cost of attendance. They don't do a debt-to-income ratio. They don't care if you have good credit. They only care that you don't have bad credit. And they don't care that it might add up to more than $200,000 by the time all of your kids are out of college. So kind of be on the lookout for this. It means that the financial aid office has run out of other funds to give you, but they still want you to believe that you have a really good financial aid package. So these interest rates are going to change on July 1st, so no need to write that down. All right, I have one slide. We're going to spend a little bit of time here. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It will open on October 1st. The handout that you have is for something called an FSA ID. The U.S. Department of Education decided this year that in order to sign electronically, they want students and parents to have a login to their website, similar to what you have with Google or Netflix. Well, Netflix you all share, but similar like your bank. You've got a username and a password. So on October 1st, the application will open the 17-18 academic year. And you and your student, and it's a Saturday this year, I love it, are going to get up, your student's going to rub your feet or whatever it takes. You're going to go to the website, and we'll talk about this in really excruciating detail next year. And you're going to fill in information. You're going to need to have your social security number and your date of birth. If you're married, your spouse's social security number, date of birth, your student's social security number, date of birth. And what's going to make this really easy compared to prior years? And so for those of you that have older students, you're thinking, I'm on drugs because it's always January 1st and it's a real pain. What's going to happen? You're going to log in. They're going to take the tax data that we all just mailed off yesterday, and they're going to pull that into the application. So they're going to do the FAFSA using the income information for the year that ended on December 31st, 2015, that we just filed taxes for yesterday, if you procrastinate. And that data will populate into the FAFSA form. So it will, in theory, be a little bit easier than it has ever been before. When you go to fill in that form, you're going to sign it. So the sheet that came around is how to get your FSA ID to sign it. If you leave tonight and you're like, they talked a lot. What is the one thing I can do tonight? This would be the one thing you could do. You could go, you could get your FSA ID, get one for you, get one for your student. So FAFSA is a wonderful, wonderful form. Not everybody can fill in the FAFSA, so we now have something called ORSA, or the Oregon Student Aid Application. So if you are not a citizen or an eligible non-citizen, you can't do the FAFSA. You don't have a social security number. And this applies even to DACA students who have a fake social, not a fake, but a valid for work only. They can't do the FAFSA, but they can do the ORSA. So some of my neighbors are still waiting for the refugee status to come through. They would use the ORSA application instead of the FAFSA. So we've got two different ways to apply for financial aid. There's a third form called the profile. I know you're giving me that look. I'm hurrying up. My next to last slide. The profile form is for private independent colleges. Here in the state, only Lewis and Clark and Reed require the profile form. It is like the FAFSA, but it asks you a whole lot of other questions. So FAFSA has a set stock number of questions. The profile might get as personal as what make and model car do you drive? What are your mortgage payments? When did you buy your house? So they're really specific questions. We don't do the profile unless we have to. So if you've got any questions, you can check with the counselors and you can call me. I promise I'm almost done. Okay. You'll have an institutional application for financial aid in some cases. So PCC, that institutional application is just the FAFSA. So at PSU, it's just the FAFSA and the admissions application. Trying to think, at University of Oregon, it's a separate scholarship application, but the essay is the same as the Honors College. So when in doubt, ask your college what they need. And students, when you call to ask, that counts as that demonstrated interest. So if you're like, hey, I met you at the college fair, you came to Wilson, I saw you, I didn't think to ask you at the time, but is there a separate financial aid application? You'll be doing scholarship applications. And when I say you'll be doing scholarship applications, parents, you're allowed to research scholarships and present the applications and the websites and the deadlines, but the students are going to actually fill them in. Verification. Once you do the FAFSA, there's more paperwork than that, and I just want to prepare you for this. We talk about the FAFSA a lot. You'll do the FAFSA, and then the school will send back and say, I've got a couple questions for you. Can you list everybody who lives in your household and where they go to college? Can you tell me again, I'm trying to think of other things I've asked in verification, how you can have $20,000 in interest income on your taxes, but you have 0 assets. I'd really like to know how that happens. So get some questions back and forth. There'll be some paperwork, and there will be loan applications. Those will happen online. But again, there'll be an exchange of paperwork between you as the family and the financial aid office. All right, other ways to pay for college. If you've been saving forever for college, when your student is in college, that's the time to spend the college savings money. And it's really hard sometimes to get out of that mindset that I'm saving that money for college. And I know I had a term where I was like, I can't afford books. And my grandma's like, what about your college savings account? And I said, I'm saving that money for college, Grandma. She's like, you're in college, Jen. So a lot of us have 529 plans. At this age, a lot of us have Oregon plans. Some of us might still have those Utah plans from back before the plans changed. If you've moved here, you might have a 529 plan sponsored by another state. Anywhere you have it, it's still good. Money is money. We're going to make use of those plans. There are things out there called individual development accounts that can be used to save to start a business, buy a home, or finance an education. So if you've got more questions on that, I'll give you my contact info in just a sec. Colleges offer payment plans. So if my daughter, whom I adore, says, Mom, I'm going to go to U of O, and they send me a bill for $3,000 that first term, I'm probably not going to just write a check for $3,000 out of my checking account. But what I can do is write a check for $1,000 for 3 months. So a lot of payment plans out there. You should always ask employers if they have any support. So if your student works at Starbucks, Home Depot, UPS, and sometimes just even, I just met with a kid from Newburgh. He works for a mom and pop company and they love him and they want to pay his tuition. So definitely ask. The worst they can say is no. Check with your employers to see if they provide any tuition assistance for dependents. And then check with grandparents because sometimes some employers do it for grandkids, not just for kids. So lastly, 2 of my favorite things, AmeriCorps, which is just like the Peace Corps, but you don't need a college degree and you stay here in this country. So you serve, you get a stipend, and then you get an education award. And you can give that education award to someone else. So I always say, if your grandma is all over you and says, honey, I'd do anything to send you to college, you can say, Grandma, could you part-time be an AmeriCorps member? Give me your AmeriCorps award. And then military service. This is traditionally how my family has accessed college. It was a lot easier in the 80s when you went to Germany and drank beer than it is now, but that's still a really valid method and vehicle to get financing for a college education. So parents, please provide your financial data. Please help research scholarship. Please help the timelines. Please be kind and give them snacks. I just throw chocolate at my daughter and it seems to pacify her. Don't do the applications yourself. Don't do the FAFSA without input from your student, and don't tell the student where to apply. So you can strongly encourage, but remember what Eric said, that this is their bus to drive. All right, so what to do right now? You can go home and create this FSA ID that you need for the student and for the parent. It's on your handout. The website is fsaid.ed.gov. You're going to create a username and a password. Then you're going to remember them until October 1st. So if you forget them, it's okay. We can reset them. And students. And I had a couple Madison parents sign up and say, I am the parent of John Doe. But if you want to receive text messages Tuesday at 11:55 a.m. from now until you graduate high school, you can go ahead and text at ORTCP17 to 801010, and I will send you a text every Tuesday. So right now we're talking about some ways to kind of slice and dice how to pick a college. The month of July is going to be ugly. We're going to start writing college essays. So, and I promise students it'll be as much fun as I can possibly make it. But students tend to like texts more than anything. And then one last slide that just has my, skip that. This is my contact information. I work for a nonprofit called the College Place Oregon. PCC donates office space to me. I'm right up at PCC Sylvania. It doesn't get any easier for you. If you want to come see me, I can send you a parking pass, so you don't have to pay that fee. This is my name, my email, my phone number. I graduated here in '86. I have a junior, class of 2017, and I have a daughter in the 8th grade who will be here next year, who's the class of 2020. So, and again, if you see me around town and you cannot remember my name, that's okay. My daughters are mortified when I answer to, hey, financial aid lady. But feel free to stop me. And if you know me, I expect to hear from you. I think Linda, you've emailed me a few times already. One of the guys I used to date in high school emailed me like 5 times last fall after I did the college night here. So I was like, dude, check it out. But feel free to contact me, ask me any questions. I know I'm the resident financial aid expert. Oh, did everybody get this little form? Oh, you forget in the front row. But I can also answer other types of questions. I work for a foundation and my services are offered to you free of charge. And free is a very good price. Thank you.